Assalamu alaikum and very good morning, my dear students. I welcome you all in another Google Classroom. I hope that you all are fine and doing well. Students, today we are going to read textbook pages 94, 95, and 96 of unit number 9, The Struggle for Independence. Students, in our previous lessons, we have discussed the role of the leaders of the subcontinent in the struggle for independence, including Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, and Chaudhry Rahmat Ali in the struggle for independence. In our today's topic, we are going to discuss the two nation theory and the partition of the subcontinent. For prior knowledge, I'm going to ask some questions from you. Question number 1: which nations were lying in subcontinent in the 18th century? Question number 2: name any two famous politicians in the subcontinent. I hope that you people know the answers of these questions. So let's move on the topic. Let's have a look on learning objectives of today's topic. Students, at the end of the lesson, you should be able to learn about the different views of people regarding what should happen once the subcontinent got home rule. You should also be able to consider different views about partitioning of subcontinent. You should also be able to describe the pre-partition struggle and sacrifices. You should also be able to identify and establish the process of the creation of Pakistan. Students, following are the main points of today's topic, so let's discuss these. Politicians in the subcontinent discussed having two nations, one mainly for Hindus and other mainly for Muslims. Allama Iqbal and Jinnah said that the subcontinent should be partitioned. Mohandas Gandhi and Vinayak Damodar said that the subcontinent should not be partitioned. In 1940s, there were many protests about the British rule of India and whether there should be two nations. In 1947, the British gave the subcontinent home rule. On 14th August 1947, Pakistan became a nation. Jinnah was its first Governor General. The next day, India became a nation. Nehru was the first Prime Minister of India. The two nation theory. My dear students, the two nation theory in its simplest way means that cultural, political, religious, economical, and social dissimilarities between the two major communities, Hindus and Muslims of the subcontinent. According to this theory, Muslims and Hindus are two separate nations with their own customs, religions, and traditions. Therefore, from social and moral point of views, Muslims should be able to have their own separate homeland outside of Hindu majority India, in which Islam is the dominant religion, and be segregated. My dear students, the leaders of the subcontinent, the politicians in the subcontinent discussed having two nations, one mainly for Muslims and the other mainly for Hindus. So here are some of the things they said. First, Quaid-e-Azam said that Hindus and Muslims cannot become one nation. They have different ways of life and different religions. Hindus would overshadow Muslims. Then Allama Iqbal said, a separate Muslim nation is the only way for a peaceful India and to save Muslims from being overpowered by non Muslims. The Muslims of Northwest India and Bengal can be a nation with its own government just like other nations. Students, these two leaders were in the favor of the separation of the subcontinent, but on the other side, these two leaders were against the separation of the subcontinent. These were Mohandas Gandhi. Mohandas Gandhi said the subcontinent should not be split. We should not be divided by religion. The other one was the politician and the poet Vinayak Damodar Savarkar. He said that India should not be split into one part one part for Muslims and the other for Hindus. It should be one man, one vote, whether he is Hindu or Muslim. A Muslim should no advantage which a Hindus does not have. Minority is no reason for privilege, and majority is no reason for penalty. These were different views of the leaders regarding the partition of the subcontinent. Mostly the Hindu leaders were against the partition of the subcontinent, and the Muslim leaders were in the favor of the partition of the subcontinent. Muslim leaders were demanding a separate homeland for the Muslims where the Muslims can live and worship freely according to their religions. So during the time of the struggle for independence, another person, Chaudhry Rahmat Ali, studied law in Britain and lived there for most of his life. He wrote about his ideas for the Muslim nation Pakistan. He proposed the name of Pakistan for Muslim nation, like P for Punjab, A for Afghania near the northwest border of the subcontinent, K for Kashmir, S for Sindh, Tan for Balochistan. Also, the name meant pure Pak nation Stan. Independence for Pakistan. In the 1940s, there were many protests about the British rule of India and whether there should be two nations. Sikhs also asked for their own nation in the Punjab. Some protests were violent. The British made a plan to unite Muslims and Hindus. Jinnah thought the Indian National Congress would join the British to stop the Muslim nation being created. He planned peaceful marches for Muslims to show that they wanted their own nation, but on many of the marches, people fought and damaged buildings. Then in 1947, the British gave the subcontinent home rule. They made new borders. On 14 August 1947, Pakistan became a nation. So Pakistan became an independent country in the areas of in the Muslim majority areas. These are Muslim majority areas. So these is called Pakistan, West Pakistan. This is West Pakistan, and this is East Pakistan. This was called East Pakistan. This was the part of Pakistan in 1947, but later in 1971 it became independent and it is now called Bangladesh. So it was Pakistan became independent in 1947, 14th August 1947. So Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah became the first Governor General of Pakistan, and on the next day, 15th August 1947, India became a separate nation. Means India became independent, and Jawaharlal Nehru became its first prime minister. Many Muslims in the new India and Hindus and Sikhs in the new Pakistan left their homes. Hundreds of thousands died in the fighting that began. This partition is called the biggest and dreadful migration in the history of the world. The men, boys, children, women, and girls all had been killed with their stuff and belongings, looted by the cruel men who might be against the partition or wanted to show their hatred towards the decision of partition. Families were murdered, tortured, and slaughtered. That is how the Muslims managed to get a separate homeland. So our forefathers have given their lives, bloods, and sweat to this land during the freedom movement. This land, this homeland acquired after so many sacrifices. So we should be proud of being a national of Pakistan. We should respect the sacrifices of our forefathers, because Pakistan was not an easy task at all. Okay, my dear students, it's time to ask the plenary question. So I'm going to ask some questions from you. Question is, who said that the subcontinent should be partitioned? Next question is, why does Pakistan came into being? Third question is, why did people leave their homes when the subcontinent was split into India and Pakistan? Okay, students, this is about the plenary. I hope you would be able to answer of these questions orally. So this is your homework. I told you in the previous lessons that now onwards homework will be, now be serious with your homeworks that will carry marks in the final exams. So please be serious about the homeworks and do it neatly, properly in the notebooks. So today's homework is read textbook pages 94 till 96 very carefully, plus answer the questions 1 and 2 of exercise A of page 95 on notebook. So you have to do question number 1 and 2 of exercise A on page 95. You have to do these two questions in your notebooks. I'm going to read these two questions. These two questions are, question number 1 is, in which year did Pakistan become a nation? Question 2 is, who was the first Governor General of Pakistan? Very easy and very short questions, short answers of these questions, very easy. So please do it very neatly with proper writing the topic name, date, homework, proper writing, answer the question in neat handwriting. Okay, my dear students, with this is the end of today's lesson. Take very good care of yourself and people around you. Have a nice day. Allah Hafiz.